Okay, so I've been getting a lot of new followers lately, which means that a lot of the positions that I have and the arguments that I've made, I feel like I should not necessarily repeat them, but I feel like it's a pretty good time to go over them. For those of you who don't know, Hatsune Miku is a anime robot girl who sings and has two big long ponytails even when there's two of them, right? Two big long hair thingies, and she sings like a robot, and she's cute and everyone likes her. She's like the only one of the least problematic cultural staples of anime, you know? And a little while ago, someone posted this image to Twitter, one they drew, of Brazilian Miku. And it's super cute. Everyone likes it. It has 1/3 of a million likes. It's a really cute drawing. See, it's Brazilian Hatsune Miku. Hatsune Miku's like a robot girl. That's kind of the bit, that she's like a computer program, you know? Please, for any Miku stands in the audience, please remember I'm not a Miku head, okay? This isn't really like the element of anime culture that I'm familiar with, so I'm going to speak from a kind of a distance perspective. But still, Japanese Barbie, there you go. Just that's something to work on. But she's not like a person, she's like a archetype. And in the same way that you could have a Barbie that's different people. I mean, have you seen the Barbie movie, right? Barbie's more of like a label or an archetype than an individual person. Here's Brazilian Miku, right? So you've got like the Brazilian flag and the shirt, and you've got like a tan because it's Brazil, and, you know, the cute flower. It's super cute. You know, you've got like the whale tail over the jean shorts. It's a good bit. And anyway, it's led to a bunch of artists kicking off with drawing Hatsune Miku in a bunch of different cultures. You know what I mean? Like a bunch of different nationalities. And it's really, really cute. It's like actually so cute. It makes me really happy to see. I'm an art guy. You know, I like art. I drew a lot when I was younger. I appreciate the form. I'm not at all a hater, you know? So I made this tweet, okay? Because I saw a lot of Hatsune Mikus that were from cultures that are considered white, right? So this is Polish Miku. See? And she's saying bober, and she's wearing traditional Polish garb, which I assume she is. I'm not, sorry. My understanding of fashion does not extend to like traditional Eastern European fashion. So I assume this is like traditional, or maybe like an embellished traditional Polish garb. And yeah, that's a beaver, I assume, but it's called bober. So we'll be calling it bober now. Bober. Lauren Boebert, don't ruin this. It's Bober, okay? Damn, that's a nice outfit. Yeah, you know, no collar guy. don't start. So anyway, I saw this, and for those of you who don't know, I'm half Polish. If you trace my ancestry back, my family more or less got to the United States about 120 years ago. Half Polish, quarter Irish, quarter German. So, you know, it's I'd like to believe that somewhere in my lineage a lady dressed like this. I don't know. I think it'd be cute. She probably didn't have the teal braids. No, yeah, they have a lot of fun, wacky, you know, it feels almost Bavarian to me, but I guess it's in the general area. I mean, it's actually not in the general area. It's very much in the area, Bavaria to Poland. So I saw this cute image, and I said, if anyone's ever wondered what white pride would look like if it wasn't about hate and really was about celebrating culture and history, all the European Miku art is the best example I've seen in a long time. So to that end, you know, to save myself on the research budget, you know, I have retweeted a bunch of really, really, really cute regional Mikus, which there's Mexican Miku, super cute, right? Here's more Mexican Miku, two alternate variations, both very powerful. The aura is here, you know, very, very strong. And then you have a bunch of Latina Mikus, right? Delightful, right? I mean, it's a happy segment. You know, if you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, it's not going to drop. It's a happy segment. It's really cute, you know? There's a cosplay Brazilian Miku. Oh, this was somebody saying, I don't know if the translate's going to work the same as it did my phone. I think there are many women around the world who want to cosplay as Miku, but I think many of them hesitate because of the skin color restrictions. However, with the creation of Brazilian Miku, perhaps these restrictions have been lifted. All you need is a turquoise green wig with twin tails and you become that country's Miku. This is true diversity. And I think that's really nice. I think that's really cute. It definitely hits from Brazil too, because Brazilian Miku is like tan and ethnically ambiguous. I mean, Brazil is an incredibly racially diverse country. So if you're from Brazil, you could be basically any shade of human skin tone that is possible, you know? Desi Miku, super, super cute, right? We're doing a little showcase. You know, Pakistani Miku, super cute. Do I know anything about Pakistani fashion? No, but this looks sick as hell. Every Pakistani woman looks like this, I take it. You know, if I ever go to Pakistan and that's not the case, I'll be very disappointed, you know? Okay, I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here, okay? Is this Ojibwe, Miku? Was that in the ballpark, please? All right, that's gotta be in the Ojibwe. Yeah, okay. It's gotta be in the ballpark, right? You know, I'm trying my best over here. Quebecois, Miku, fantastic. Northern Louisiana, Miku. You get the point. Okay. So anyway, one thing that I've noticed, because I'm a big noticer, I love seeing things with my peepers, you know, as long as I've got my glasses on. You've probably seen this argument online before, right? Where people will be like, why is it that you can have Black pride and you can have Latin pride and you can have Asian pride, but you can't have white pride? If you Google white pride, the Wikipedia article for white pride shows that it's a hate movement, but it doesn't say that about Asian pride. So I don't think anyone who watches me is really particularly befuddled by this argument, but I wanted to kind of like, I don't know, reiterate it because I felt like this was an excellent jumping off point. You know, I feel like a lot of this stuff is really, I mean, look at this, right? Italian nonna Miku making pasta, delightful. Texan Miku's, various variants, you know? We've got like pop star country gal and like, you know, Ranger Native American kind of dealio, you know? It's good, but they don't have guns. I don't think Hatsune Miku would need a gun, Texan or otherwise. So, one thing that I've noticed, because I like noticing things, is that people who say white pride very rarely know anything about or care about any white cultures. The reason for this is because they tend to be in favor of or defensive of whiteness as a cultural monolith rather than white people or any individual white cultures. So let me explain what I mean by that, okay? Have you ever seen a neo-Nazi go online and, like, argumentatively, directly, confidently argue for things like a child tax credit because they know that more white children will be able to eat a full meal every day if it goes through? No. Have you seen, you know, white pride types go online and like fervently argue in favor of better educational spending so that white children have the opportunity to get better like outcome in life? No. You don't see any of that. People who say white pride online are united entirely by hatred, you know? And often they very rarely represent anything about what we would call white cultures, you know? They often complain about globalization and the global monoculture, but when you take a look at white nationalists in real life and online, they're often like just fail sons who wear t-shirts and jeans. They dress in the costume of the global world. You know what I mean? We're not talking about people who are dressing up in traditional Bavarian clothing or anything. We're talking about people who don't engage with any of the cultures they claim to be defenders of. And the reason for that, I think, is because if you actually break down white cultures, you'll find that there's no such thing as a white culture, and most white countries were at war with each other for like 4,000 years. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, Britain and France, the monoculture, you know? Historically, Britain and France, the two cultures that are the same culture, you know? That's so true. I mean, we're talking about cultural distinctions that got so minute, like leaving aside like Holy Roman Empire type stuff, where you have people fighting over stretches of land that, you know, are so large you could climb a tree and see every side of them in one like turnaround, you know? What about like the Balkan states, where you have the breakup of Yugoslavia in large part to deep-seated ethnic divisions in people who have for in some cases, millennia, lived in an area smaller than Texas, smaller than New York. You know what I mean? It's like, damn, what the hell is white culture? Go talk to an Albanian and a Serbian about how they're both part of white culture. You know, go talk to a British and a French and a German person and talk about how they're all white culture. Like, what are you talking about? In reality, there's no actual such thing as race culture because culture isn't race. Culture's like a really, really complicated jumble of ideas, preferences, language, clothing, tradition, religion, whatever, that are shared by people of a similar, you know, sometimes it's an ethnicity, sometimes it's a region. It's not always ethnicity, right? People don't usually consider America an ethnicity because America is a really diverse country. We consider America a nationality, something that white nationalists get really upset about, but you wouldn't really say America's an ethnicity because, like, America don't have one culture in it, does it? You know? Northern Louisiana, Texas, Maine, New York City. New York City has more people in it than a lot of countries do. There's no such thing as a monoculture, you know? And this is the reason why you don't often hear about, at least I don't often hear about this. I don't really hear about like Latin pride. I hear about Mexican pride, Cuban pride, Dominican pride. You know what I mean? I hear about Brazilian pride or Chilean pride or Venezuelan pride. I don't really hear about like, oh yeah, you know, all Latin people. It's like a whole continent and a half plus the Caribbeans. You don't really hear about that. I think that the popularity of this new, you know, draw every ethnicity or culture or whatever as Hatsune Miku, I think it speaks to people's desire to reconnect with culture, but real culture, not like the made-up hegemonic archetype of whiteness that racists online like to push, you know? Because there's nothing wrong with celebrating your culture innately at all, right? Like, you know, you see that represented in some of the things that everyone likes most about cultural diversity. I mean, pardon me for using an example from my youth, but street tacos in LA? Please, Mexico, bring more of your culture, you know? Could you bring it further north? Because I'm over in Seattle now, and frankly, I'm a little bit farther away. If you could just push the taco carts a little bit further north, you know, I would really appreciate it. We're kind of lacking over here. Bring it to Florida. Oh, you've got plenty of good food in Florida. Hush up. Most of the good food over here in Seattle is fish. I don't like fish that much. I'm not a big seafood guy. I know. I'll eat my spicy tuna rolls. There's great sushi places here. Can someone explain the giant corn to me? Kat, can we get a real Mexican in chat to explain this one? Over here? That's not corn. That's like popcorn. I think that's like a giant popcorn bag. It looks like it refers to street carts, which again... Oh, elote? Elote. Okay, I've heard that, though I don't think I've seen it in this size before. It's their totem. That's their religion, man. Anyway, she's just small. Well, it is Hatsune Miku. Okay, when I made that tweet that I referred to, where I said, you know, if the white pride guys really cared about the cultures of the so-called white nations they care about, they would be doing stuff like this rather than, you know, shaving their heads and beating up Mexicans on the streets. Some people misinterpreted what I was saying. They thought that I was arguing that, like, the good version of white pride is, you know, drawing Texan Hatsune Miku or whatever, which isn't my position. Whiteness is kind of complicated in terms of how people define it, you know? This is one of those like academic language versus colloquial language gaps. Raise your hand in chat if you've ever seen somebody, just anyone, online, in person, whatever else, say like whiteness needs to be destroyed. You know, have you ever seen that? Right? We seen that. Raise hand. You raised little. I've said it, you know, but people get confused about what it means. And to be clear, I'm sure there are people who are saying whiteness needs to be destroyed. No, who are like actually really don't like white people. I'm not denying that. Okay, sure. There are people like that out there. Fine, sure. But it's like it's a world of 8 billion people. You can always find people who are like that. What it really means, whiteness, it's a hegemonic cultural construct defined largely by exclusion. What is or isn't white has shifted over time, and it's mostly defined by what it's not. So when America was founded, you know, was it I always get it mixed up. Benjamin Franklin versus Thomas Jefferson. I always get it mixed up. One of the two wrote a letter where they were concerned about Germanic immigration into the new United States. It was Benjamin? Okay, Benjamin, thank you. Thank you. Not that Benjamin, you know. He was concerned about Germanic immigration because he thought Germans were too swarthy for the United States. Because the United States at that time was composed mostly of British and French people, right? The French were allied with us in our Revolutionary War against the British. And of course, the American colonies were British stock, right? Those were the colonists. Can you imagine a definition of whiteness so restrictive that German people aren't included in it? That's crazy. Germans too swarthy? Okay. Jesus, man, you spend one day in the sun out too long and you're too swarthy for the original United States, you know? 100 years ago, we didn't really consider the Irish and Italians white people. Now, some people argue about this, like definitionally whether they were considered white. They weren't. You can find scientific racist research papers from the British in the 19th century where they talked about the Irish like a different species. You know how nowadays you get a bunch of like fake pseudoscience from scientific racists where they're like, if you take a look at this research that was done in 1923 by a British man with a big safari hat, the average IQ in, you know, Gamba is 4 anyway, and then you look at the research and it was literally the British man was like, I think by their disposition They might be nitwits. And then it's like, oh, okay, research, you know? They were doing that to the Irish. They were doing that to the Irish. The exact same thing. The same thing. The Irish, they're right there, man. They're the next island over. They're very white. They're so white, we make fun of them for it with the freckles and the red hair. I've got red in my beard because I'm quarter Irish, you know? No one would fail to describe me as white unless you're really, really in the sauce, you know? They did the same thing with Italians. So if the Irish and Italians weren't really considered proper white initially, how did they come to be considered white? Well, originally, the Irish and Italians were locked up in the same ghettos that were occupied by Jews and blacks, right? That was the original, that was like they were kind of thrown into the same social category, you know? But I don't want to impose any controversial opinions on this altogether, I would say, positive segment. Generally speaking, Irish and Italian people are paler than black people, generally. And because there was a great difference in the identifiable differences between Irish and Italian people and black people, one of the major ways they were able to earn their whiteness was by distinguishing themselves from the black people in America. And this is evident in large part in union proceedings at that time, because at the beginning of the 20th century, initially, black people, Irish people, and Italian people were a great threat as a unified bloc, so that they could, you know, they would unionize and the northern factories would have to pay them decent wages. But it was seen as a good strategy to kind of break up the races, so to speak, by convincing Italian and Irish people that they weren't, you know, low enough to be in the same social standing as black people, and by convincing black people that, you know, they're allying with, white oppressors, which that latter bit of propaganda, I think, was much less prominent. Let's not pretend that there was like equal hatred on both sides or whatever. If you're black in America and you have the opportunity to work in a union with a white man, even if they're Irish or Italian, you're probably taking that deal. But again, history is complicated. Whiteness as a social category has always been about exclusion. Who isn't a part of it? That's the reason why people who care about white supremacy, white nationalism, blur all of the cultural distinctions within it in an effort to better separate themselves from the outside, from the non-white people. White supremacists don't care about all the unique, distinct, flavorful cultures within so-called whiteness. They care about carving a very solid line that allows them to push out against other people. And that's the point that I'm making here. You know, in a good world, you would never have like a racial pride because it's a race. What'd you do? Your mom give you that race? Nice skin tone, you know? Your mom get that for you? Come on. It's silly. There's nothing innately cultural about race, you know? Black people have had plenty of influence on Europe, and white people have had plenty of influence on the Arab world and Africa, even before the, you know, age of European colonialism, right? Like the Greeks. The Greeks were doing all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, the Greeks were moving all the way, you know, they were heading up there into what's now France. They were going down there with the Moors. They were bopping. It's a lot of influence, right? Ancient Egyptian history is in large part defined by, you know, Cleopatra and what is it, Marcus Aurelius? Am I remembering I'm not a big Rome guy or a big ancient Egypt guy, you know, and the consequences of, you know, Mark Antony. I should remember that because that's like my dad's name, basically, you know, of effectively in, you know, concept white occupation. No, that's classical Egypt. Oh, right. That's like 2,000 years after the pyramids. That's ancient Egypt is like 4,000 years ago. And then classical. Yeah, that's crazy. Man, the pyramids are so old. I think that celebrating your culture is really cool, you know? And I think that people want to feel connected to their culture. But the only people who use that as a racial talking point, I think, are people who don't care about the culture at all. I think the two are antithetical to each other. I think that you can make culture about race or about culture. And if you're making it about race, you're only doing it to exclude other people. If you're making culture about culture, then, you know, have fun with it, you know, right? They got some sick ass outfits here. People crave local culture that they care about. One of the most culturally powerful cities in the world is New York City. New York City isn't a racial monoculture. It's basically as far away from a racial monoculture as any city can be. New York City is like it's like a nation state kind of, you know, it's New York City, right? And there are people have very strong attachments to New York City. The locals, they care a lot about it. Look at this bit of art I saw. This is Brazilian Miku and Mexican Miku. Super, super cute, right? You know, clearly done out of a love and respect for culture rather than an effort to exclude and hate people. And then look at this, American Miku. And it's like kind of a streetwear in New York. I don't know if it's New York City necessarily, but look, you've got like the big varsity bomber and the oversized pants. It's like, yeah, that looks sick as hell, you know? And that's American as. Now, racists get mad about shit like this, of course, because they want, I mean, you know, they want it all to be race. But I say, you know, if you love America, you have to love this. What is a kilometer? What is a kilometer? That was my best Miku voice. Ain't it cute? I think it's really cute. I feel like your tweet is kind of analogous to you pointing at a children's hospital or charity that feeds and clothes kids or something and saying this is what being pro-life would look like if it wasn't about hitting women. Yes, yes, I think that's a perfectly, thank you. That's Nikki Bugs, that's very good. Yeah, I think that's perfectly analogous, essentially, yeah. That's the point being made. Another Polish Miku. It's so cute. Have you gotten to the people attacking you for this take yet? No, and I don't really want to. Some people have misinterpreted me, but that's okay. I genuinely think that this is like a positive thing. I think it's really, really nice that so many people are, in a healthy way, expressing enthusiasm for the idea of like, in the area that I live in, there is a distinct culture and there's something beautiful about it, and I want to represent it, you know? It's a fundamentally non-exclusionary process because you have the same woman, Hatsune Miku, repping all of them, you know? How can it be exclusionary when it's the same person, right? Well, person, you know what I mean. The same archetypal character. It's really cute. There are so many. There are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of artists that have kicked in for this, and they are just killing it. Look at this Brazilian Miku. By the way, that U.S. Miku pic you showed, the creator of it actually went on to write a thread about why it be considered America's national dress. That's awesome. Yeah, the two largest so American fashion has always been about making things more casual. I mean, compare us to the British in vibes, right? Like, that's where we come from, kind of. And, you know, relative to the British, like, you know, obviously we're more casual. When I think of American clothing, I think of three things. I think of Western wear. I think of black hip-hop streetwear, or like, I guess, black hip-hop inspired or adjacent. You know what I mean? Larger pants, boxier tees, like a different silhouette, kind of like the big bombers. You know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. And also the Ivy League look, you know, the Ivy League, like skinny ties, jeans with a sports jacket, that kind of thing. Those are the three like American traditional clothing that I think of. We're a very young country, you know. If you want to go to traditional British clothing, you're going back to like shaman pagans painting swirls on themselves in the swamp, you know. You can go back for a while with the Britons, but not not so much in America. Yeah, everyone in chat's posting their own favorite Miku. Isn't it nice? We got any Celtic Mikus? I'm sure they're out there. I believe. Finnish Miku. Very cute. This Northeast Brazilian Miku is really nice. Northeast Brazil, I don't know what that means or represents, but I think she looks really nice. So we don't have culture anymore. Wasn't there recently a video that was going around of people in like, what was the country, man? Was it in Cairo? I think it was in Cairo, in Egypt, where it was a bunch of young people in Cairo, and they looked and dressed exactly like young Americans do in the hip and happening parts of the world, or not the world, of the country. You know what I mean? Can somebody find that if I can't find that? Because it's genuinely crazy. A lot of people get really angry at, I guess, the consequences of existing in a monoculture where like nothing, there's no local tie or attachment to the world anymore. People mostly just get attached to their own cities, if that makes any sense, you know? Like, people are like, oh, New York, oh, LA, oh, Seattle or whatever. It's like a city thing, but even then the differences are, you all still dress the same way. Is this a capitalism thing? Yeah, to a large extent, yeah. Reactionaries often get really upset about this sort of thing. The idea that young people in Cairo would be listening to the same music, dressing and acting the same as Westerners. And I understand their frustration. The problem ultimately is that they approach this from the wrong angle, you know? A global monoculture is a bad thing because it's innately bland and it's all sold to us by corporations that are just trying to save a dime on, you know, their marketing and production, right? It's not good. It's not reflective of the people's interest, you know? But then they, you know, the reactionary gets all stupid about it. And they're like, oh, the only way to prevent this is to, like, I don't know, prevent people of other races from entering our country. Look at what I'm looking at. Does any of this look like it's being caused by white people be entering Egypt? These look like Egyptians to me, and they look like they're adopting these cultural trends just fine on their own, you know? It's not like, it's not, the cultural icons of the global monoculture are not brought via race, like a skin tone infection, you know? It's a more complicated thing. It's a more complicated problem. Aren't most Americans attached to the culture in the area? I mean, I don't think I don't think most people meaningfully engage with their culture in any way, to be honest with you. At least not in the West. Do you think diversity is our strength clashes with the idea of a global society, with the Cairo thing as an example? I think you're mixing a bunch of terms up there, and it's really complicated to untangle them. Diversity is our strength is a meaningless nothing phrase that liberals put out there to make you forget about the blackface they did when they were younger. And it's also something that racists get really mad at. What they often mean when they say diversity is our strength is we should import people of different races, which, like, yeah, I mean, I guess we should if they want to come, you know, if they want to. But that's not really what diversity is, because that kind of diversity is racial diversity, but I'm talking about cultural diversity. New York City is full of racial diversity, but there are black people and white people who are of effectively the exact same culture there. So that's not, like, really what I'm talking about. You know, I think people should be free to move wherever they want. You know, obviously immigration laws are going to differ country to country, and you should be pragmatic about it. Like, I don't think it's literally possible for every human alive to suddenly move to Norway or whatever. But, you know, within reason, I think that it's good for people to move around. We have one life. We should be able to live it freely. And I think that cultural diversity is good, as long as by cultural diversity, we're talking about morally non-weighted factors like, you know, food, dress, that kind of thing, behavioral mannerisms, and not stuff like the Saudis think that women are literal objects, right? So racial diversity, good. Cultural diversity, good. Global society, good, but not in a way that homogenizes culture. You know, we don't want every single town in America to look like a truck stop with 17 gas stations, right? Like, we, you know, local diversity is good, but it has nothing to do with race, at least not culturally speaking. How culturally diverse were the Romans? Extremely. It was literally an empire. Freedom to choose your own gas station. We don't even have that anymore, man. We don't even have that anymore. Is the global homogenous culture inevitable? No. It's because of capitalism. Yay. How would a socialist society can we do one thing at a time in a segment? Vosh, I do worry about people wanting to dress how their ancestors did 20 years ago. No one wants to do that. That's not a real concern or a real worry. I'm not talking about everyone wandering around like it's the 1800s. I'm just talking about, like, embracing the elements of local culture that you care about, the aesthetic differentiators, you know, rather than everyone dressing exactly the same. Like, why do you think we dress the way we do? You know? Like, it's not like jeans and a t-shirt are the default outfit and every other type of dress is a deviation from it in terms of comfort or whatever, you know? It's American cultural hegemony. It's Canadian Miku. It's cute is what it is. Polish Miku. This feels like it comes from personal knowledge, you know? Seasonal depression. I mean, it gets cold in Poland, you know? It's sometimes you're just outside a gas station, it's cold. Romanian Miku? Or no, not Romanian. Romani. Cute. There are so many nice clothes out there that we just don't dress in. Palestinian Miku? She does support Hamas. Probably not, but, you know. She supports Palestinian independence. Stop with the linking! Kurdish trad dress is actually so drippy, especially the men's. I mean, that's probably the case with, like, a lot of traditional clothing. People just used to look better. It's not just, like, traditional dress. Everyone used to dress better. Where's that old photo of Franklin Delano Roosevelt walking around back when he was in the Navy and he looked drippy as shit? It wasn't even him in uniform. It was just him, like, dressed up. People just used to... Oh, this is the thing that I was thinking about. People just generally used to dress better. We had fewer clothes, they cost more, but you kept better care of them, and you had tailors nearby who would help you alter them and make sure they fit the contours of your body, and you tried to keep well to them, you know? Everyone looks like shit now, respectfully. Was that more of an upper class thing, though? No. Genuinely, no. The suit was the commoner outfit of its time. You know, it was worn by like regular shopkeepers or whatever. Does that guy's vest even fit? Yes. What if I don't want to wear a suit every day? You don't have to wear a suit every day. I'm just talking about how it didn't always used to be everyone just wears like the same 3 items of clothing made 40% of acrylic or polyester, and people used to dress up. Chinese commoners have very different dress, and Chinese people who live in like Hong Kong or whatever probably dress pretty much the same way that people do in America, you know?